Okay, today we are doing 5-4 rational expressions, and this is where our GCF and our factoring comes back into play. So remember I said it wasn't going to go away. You had to make sure that you understood how to do factoring and finding the GCF. With rational expressions, you're going to be given a fraction, and the first thing you want to do is just to look at the top. And think back to your chapter 4 test, and if I gave you x squared minus 2x, and I said to factor that, what would you do first? Well, hopefully the first thing you would do is you would say, oh, I have to find my GCF, which you know your greatest common factor is x. So x times x squared is x squared, and x times negative 2 is negative 2x. When you look at this, you can't factor anything else, so you know that you would leave it alone and that you would be done factoring it. Then you go to the bottom here, and if I asked you to factor that, hopefully you would recognize that this, first of all, doesn't have a GCF, but it is a difference of squares. Once you factor the top and the bottom part of the fraction, you then are going to look to see if you can cancel anything out. When you're trying to cross something out, you have to realize that your whole entire parentheses are together. That's one whole answer. So, for example, here, these are exactly the same. So we can cross off that whole entire part of the fraction. However, I am not allowed to cross these x's off because this is connected by a plus 2. So like I said, it's one whole thing, x plus 2. So you're not allowed to reduce by crossing off the x's. So please do not do that on your test. It has to be either connected, like this is connected by multiplication, so you're looking at this one and then this one. This is connected by a plus sign, so it's the whole entire thing together. Here, these two are connected by multiplication, so you're okay, you can cross those off. These are separate. So your final answer is x over x plus 2. Example number 2, 3x minus 5x squared minus 2x to the third times 6x squared minus 5x plus 1 to the negative 1 power. Whenever you have anything like this to the negative, the negative 1 power, this is like just saying that you have a fraction, so you can really write this whole entire thing with this underneath it. So now you're going to go ahead and do exactly what we did in the first one. Here, if you notice, if you look, you have a GCF, but let's write this in a different order. Let's write this with the negative 2x to the third in front minus the 5x squared plus 3x. I just wrote it in descending order. And the denominator is the same, so that's okay. So now we're going to go ahead and factor this here, but before we do, we have to take out the GCF, which if you notice is x, and let's make it a negative x so that this will be a positive in the front. So when you take out a negative x, you're going to have negative x times 2x squared is negative 2x to the third. Negative x times positive 5x is negative 5x squared. And negative x times a negative 3 is a positive 3x. So all we did was we just took the GCF right here. Then we could go ahead and try to factor this. Okay, and again, I'm just looking at the top part right here of my fraction. I just took out the GCF. We'll worry about the denominator in a second. Oops, sorry, too far. Okay, so now let's see if we can factor this guy right here. And I'm not going to do the whole factoring process to save time. Hopefully you're good at factoring by now. If not, make sure you talk to your teacher because you got to make sure that you're okay on that. But when we factor this, and you'd have to factor by grouping, you would get this answer. When we look at this one, we don't have a GCF, and when we factor, you get 2x minus 1, 3x minus 1. Now we can go ahead and look to see if we can cross anything off. Well, these are exactly the same, so we can cross these off. However, these are not, and nothing is by itself with an x, so our answer is just negative x times x plus 3 over 3x minus 1. And that is our answer for example number 2. Example number 3, I have 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 over x to the third plus x squared minus 2x. We're going to look on top and see if we have a GCF. We don't, so we can go ahead and just factor it. And again, to save time, I'm just going to write out what this is factored. Here we look, we have a GCF that is an x. So left over, and I'll write it here. If we take out an x, I'm just going to write it underneath. If we take out an x, we have x squared plus x minus 2. And then we go ahead and factor that. We have an x and an x. Our signs will be plus or minus. And we would have 2 minus 1. Then we look top to bottom to see if any of them are the same. And if you look, nothing is the same. So your answer is just this because we were not able to reduce anything. One of the questions I get is, do I have to go back and FOIL this to get an answer like this? No, just leave it as the factors because we want to make sure that you know how to factor it and simplify it that way. Part of your homework or your classwork is going to ask you to find the domain. When you're trying to find the domain, you are going to look at the bottom part of the fraction. Or the denominator. Okay? And you are going to set this part, so like if we're looking at this one and this was our answer, after we simplified, we would look at this right here. And we would look at x plus 2, x minus 1, and we would set it equal to 0. Now this is just like your chapter 4 test. If I gave you these, I'd say go ahead and set each of these equal to 0 to solve for x. So you'd have x equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. So your domain would be 0, negative 2, and positive 1. And this is definitely, I remember this being on your final, so make sure you understand how to find the denominator of a rational expression. And you'd have to look at your final answer before after you crossed everything off and reduced it. You will also have to know for your final what zeros are and how to find them. So it's the opposite. You're going to look at the top part of the fraction for your zeros. So here we have 2x minus 1, x minus 3. So 2x minus 1, x minus 3, and you're going to set that equal to 0. So here would be 2x minus 1 equals 0, so you'd have 1 half, and x minus 3 equals 0, so you would have 3. So your zeros would be 2 and 3. I memorized whether it's the top or the bottom fraction by domain is the denominator, the last domain denominator. They both start with D, so that since it's the domain, you're finding the denominator and setting that equal to 0. For your zeros, you're doing the top part of